They said the boy was too weak to run. They said a lame child with a rattling chest could never escape horses, rifles, chains, and dogs. But in Georgia, in the winter of 1849, 17 men learned that a hunted boy did not need strong legs if he had a stronger mind. 17 men counted themselves before sunrise, not soldiers, not sheriffs, not a posse chasing a stolen horse. 17 men gathered in the freezing dark to hunt one boy. Some carried rifles, some carried rope. 4 led dogs trained to follow the scent of a person through pine needles, mud, and running water. One man unfolded a handwritten notice and read it by lantern light. Runaway from Magnolia Bluff Plantation, Houston County, Georgia. Boy called Eli, 15 years, small made, brown skin, scar over left eye, lame in the right leg, lately hired in Macon, believed to be lurking near the railroad or making for the river. $25 for his capture, $50 if returned before Christmas. The men almost laughed. Lame? 15? Don't mistake small for harmless. That boy notices everything. He remembers roads after one journey. He knows which dogs bite and which only bark. He can tell you the day of the week by the smell of ink on a newspaper. Can he outrun a horse? No. Then we'll be home by supper. They were right about one thing. Eli Moss couldn't outrun a horse. He couldn't outrun a dog. On that December morning in 1849, he could barely run at all. But he had spent 15 years learning something the men around him had never imagined. A hunted person does not always escape by moving faster. Sometimes he escapes by making 17 hunters chase a boy who was never there. Welcome to Haddo's of Black History. This is the place where forgotten stories come alive and the past speaks again. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, your city, your country, and the time you are watching this story. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel across the world. If you enjoy powerful history stories like this one, please subscribe to the channel and like this video so more people can discover these hidden moments from the past. And now, let us go back. Back to Middle Georgia. Back to 1849. Back to the week a boy who was too weak to run made an entire hunting party lose its way. Before we begin, one thing needs to be said plainly. I could not find a surviving court record, newspaper account, memoir, or plantation document proving that one specific boy in Georgia outsmarted exactly 17 slave catchers in 1849. So what follows is not presented as a documented biography. It is a dramatized historical story built from the world that made such a story possible. Georgia's slave patrol system, the newspaper reward notices that turned human beings into hunted property, the laws that criminalized black literacy, and the real escape strategies used by freedom seekers across the Deep South. The boy at the center of this story is imagined. The machinery hunting him was not. Macon, Georgia, in 1849 was a young city built on old Cruelty. It sat on the fall line, where the Piedmont dropped toward the coastal plain and where the Ocmulgee River ceased to be easily navigable. Cotton came in from the surrounding counties by wagon. Bales were stored, sold, loaded, and moved toward Savannah. Rail lines and telegraph wires were beginning to pull the town into a faster age. But beneath the warehouses, banks, churches, taverns, and newspaper offices, the foundation remained the same. Human beings owned as property. By law and custom, nearly every white person in Georgia was expected to participate in the surveillance of black life. Georgia's patrol system reached back to 1757. The Colonial Assembly had ordered white landowners and residents to serve in patrol districts, riding at night, stopping enslaved people on the roads, demanding passes, and punishing anyone found away from an owner's property without written permission. The law said patrols should not exceed 7 men in a district. In practice, fear could swell a patrol into a crowd. A pass had to say who enslaved you, where you were allowed to go, when you were allowed to go there, and when you had to return. If you were black, enslaved, or free, your body itself was treated as a document that could be challenged at any moment. To understand why Eli's knowledge mattered, you have to understand how completely the law tried to own movement itself. A black child could not simply walk down a road and be left alone. A road was not a road in the way we understand it now. It was a checkpoint waiting to happen. Every bridge could become a question. Every stranger could become an arrest. Every piece of paper could decide whether a child went home, went to jail, or disappeared into a coffle-headed South. That was the world Eli studied while white men looked through him and saw only a broom, a basket, and a limp. Near the center of Macon stood the office of the Georgia Journal and Messenger, a weekly newspaper filled with political speeches, cotton prices, legal notices, land sales, sermons, rumors, and advertisements. Some advertisements offered land, some offered horses, some offered rewards for human beings. Runaway, taken up, stop the thief, $25 reward. The language was so ordinary that a reader could pass from a notice about a stray mule to a notice about a missing child without any change in tone. A name, an age, a height, a complexion, a scar, a limp, a guess about where the person might be headed. To the enslaver, it was an advertisement. To the person described, it was a death sentence written in columns. Eli, sweep around the press. Mind the ink. Then take these proof sheets to the courthouse office. Straight there, straight back. Yes, sir. Eli Moss was 15 years old in the winter of 1849, though no record of his birth would have used the word birthday. He had been born into slavery on a plantation south of Macon, near the red clay country where cotton rows seemed to run past the horizon. His mother had named him Elijah, but the plantation ledger shortened him to Eli, as if even his name could be reduced to save ink. He was small for 15, narrow shoulders, a chest that rattled when the weather turned damp, a right leg that had healed badly after an overseer threw him against a cotton wagon 2 winters earlier. When he walked quickly, the leg dragged. When he ran, it folded beneath him. The men at Magnolia Bluff called him too weak for the field, so they found other uses for him. He curried horses, cleaned bridles, carried messages, delivered eggs, drove a cart. And because the plantation owner, Elias Crowell, owed money to half the merchants in Bibb County, Eli had lately been hired out to a printer in Macon. Not to read, not to write, not to touch type, but to sweep floors, carry paper, and move bundles through the cold streets. Officially, Eli was not supposed to know what the papers said. Georgia had made that dangerous. In 1829, the state had criminalized teaching enslaved or free black people to read or write. The punishment could fall on the student and the teacher. Literacy was treated as a weapon because it was one. A person who could read a pass. A person who could write could forge one. A person who understood a newspaper could understand the exact system built to hunt him. Eli understood. He had learned letters before he learned the danger of them. His mother, Esther, had taught him with charcoal on the back of broken shingles, late at night, when the quarters were quiet. She had no book, no slate, no school, only memory, patience, and the terror of knowing what would happen if they were discovered. She would draw a letter and whisper its sound, E-L-I. Then she would wipe it away. Why wipe it off? Because paper can be taken from you. A mark on the wall can be used against you. But what you carry in your head, that is yours. What good is it if nobody can see it? God can see it. And one day you may need to see a road before your feet ever touch it. Esther had been sold when Eli was 9. The reason given was debt. The reason did not matter. A man came with papers, counted money, and took her south before breakfast. Eli remembered the sound of her shoes in the dirt. He remembered that she did not cry until she was out of sight, and he remembered the last thing she pressed into his hand, a square of blue cloth torn from her dress. No note, no address, no promise, just blue cloth and the letters she had hidden inside his mind. By December 1849, Eli had spent 3 years turning that forbidden knowledge into a private map. He knew the shape of reward notices. He knew that enslavers often guessed wrong about where a runaway intended to go. He knew that a person described as artful was feared more than a person described as strong. He knew that newspapers printed on Wednesdays, and that news traveled by wagon, rail, horseback, rumor, and telegraph, but not always at the same speed. He knew that most men saw what they expected to see, and he knew that if he ever ran, the people hunting him would expect him to run like a frightened animal, fast, straight, and stupid. So Eli made a decision long before he needed it. If the day came, he would not run. He would disappear. The day began with smoke. It rose from the kitchen house before dawn and drifted across Magnolia Bluff in a thin gray line. Frost silvered the cotton fields. The stalks had been stripped, leaving sharp little claws where the bolls had been. The quarter cabins stood in a row behind the great house, close enough for the overseer to hear a child cry, far enough for him to pretend he had not. Eli had returned from Macon the previous evening with a wagon load of printed circulars for his owner. He slept in the stable loft because the overseer said a boy hired in town came back full of city notions. At sunrise, Harlan Peavy kicked the stable door open. Eli. Down. Eli lowered himself through the loft ladder, favoring his right leg. Master wants every hand at the house by full light. No breakfast till after. Something wrong? When I want your questions, boy, I'll beat them out of you. Peavy said it without heat. That was worse. Anger passed. Indifference stayed. Eli limped toward the great house through the cold. Others were already gathering. Field hands with cracked hands. Women with babies tied to their backs. Old Uncle Fortune, who had survived 3 owners and 2 counties. And beside the smokehouse, clutching the sleeve of her dress, stood Lila. Lila was 9. She was Eli's half-sister, born after Esther was sold away. Her father had been sold before she could remember him. She had Eli's eyes and none of his caution. She asked questions at the wrong time. She laughed when she was nervous. She still believed that if she worked hard enough, nobody would sell her. Eli had never told her otherwise. Why they ringing the bell so early? Don't know yet. You hear something in town? I hear plenty. Most of it ain't worth hearing. Eli, not here. The front door opened and Elias Crowell stepped onto the porch. Crowell was not the largest man in Houston County, nor the richest, but he behaved as if the world had personally insulted him by failing to make him both. His plantation had once produced enough cotton to buy silver plate and French wallpaper. Now, the wallpaper peeled, the silver had gone to a creditor in Savannah, and Crowell carried his debts like a concealed wound. Beside him stood a stranger in a dark coat, a black hat, and gloves too clean for the weather. Eli knew the type before the man spoke. A trader, not a planter who bought people to work his own fields, a trader who bought them to sell again. The stranger looked over the gathered families the way a man looked over fence rails. You all know times have been hard. You know the crop came in light. You know obligations must be met. No one answered. I have reached an arrangement with Mr. Slade of Columbus. Certain hands will be transferred after Christmas. The rest will remain. Those who remain will be expected to make up the lost labor. A sound moved through the crowd. Not a word, not yet, but the beginning of one. Quiet. The transfer will take place the first week of January. Until then, work continues as usual. The trader, Gideon Slade, opened a small leather book. I'll inspect the lot after breakfast. Names, ages, skills, any ailments, any history of running. I pay for sound bodies, not stories. Eli felt Lila's hand find his. What's a transfer? Hush. Eli, what's a transfer? He could not answer because he already knew. A transfer meant a wagon meant a chain meant a trader's yard, and a trader's yard meant a child could leave Georgia with a new name and no road home. After the announcement, the enslaved workers were sent back to their tasks. Eli was ordered to unload the wagon behind the kitchen house. He worked slowly, listening. Inside the dining room, Crowell and Slade drank coffee and discussed human beings as inventory. The girl, Lila, 9, healthy, small, she'll grow. They all grow if they live. What about the boy, Eli? Lame, chest weak, good with horses, but he's not worth his keep in the field. Can he read? No. Outside, Eli stood still with a crate in his arms. You sure? I'd have him whipped raw if I thought otherwise. Then I'll take him too. A lame boy brings less, but boys grow out of lameness. Sometimes he's hired in Macon through the month. The printer pays cash. Then the sale can include the remainder of the contract. I'll collect him after Christmas, put him with the girl. Brother and sister, aren't they? Half. Half sells better than none. The crate slipped in Eli's hands. He caught it before it fell. Inside the house, Slade laughed. Careful out there. Damaged goods cost money. That night, Eli sat in the stable loft with a lantern turned low. Lila climbed up and sat beside him. Are they selling me? Yes. You too? After Christmas. Where? Columbus first. Maybe farther. Farther than Columbus? Could be. Could we come back? Eli looked at his sister and saw, for one terrible second, the exact moment childhood ends. Not when a child learns that monsters exist, when a child learns that the monsters have receipts. Listen to me. You are not going with him. How you going to stop it? I don't know yet. That ain't a plan. It's the beginning of one. Beginning don't save nobody. Eli reached into his shirt and pulled out the square of blue cloth. Mama gave me this before they took her. My mama? Mine. Same thing. He almost smiled. She taught me letters, told me knowledge is a road you can carry when your legs can't carry you. Can letters stop a trader? No. Then what good are they? Eli looked toward the dark window. Somewhere beyond the fields, the road to Macon waited. Beyond Macon, the Ocmulgee. Beyond the Ocmulgee, Savannah. Beyond Savannah, ships. Maybe they can tell us when to move, where they'll look, who they'll send, and how to make them look somewhere else. You mean trick them? I mean survive them. You can't run, Eli. The words landed harder than she intended. I'm sorry. No, you're right. Then how? Eli closed his hand around the blue cloth. If they think I ran north, they'll chase north. If they think I'm hiding in the swamp, they'll drag the swamp. If they think I'm already caught, they'll stop looking. But they'll catch you. Only if I'm where they think I am. He leaned closer. I need you to be brave in a way that looks like nothing. No crying, no asking questions, no looking back. What do I do? On Sunday, after meeting, you go to Aunt Charity's wash shed by the depot. You help carry baskets. You stay till dark. If a woman named Mama Zilphia says the words blue thread, you go with her. Where? I don't know yet. Eli, if I tell you, and somebody frightens you, you might tell without meaning to. Ignorance can be armor. And what about you? Eli looked down at his bad leg. I'm going to give them a boy to chase. Every plantation had 2 maps. The first was the official map. Boundary lines, fields, roads, gin house, cotton press, quarters, great house, smokehouse, stable, cemetery. The second map belonged to the enslaved. It included the path behind the sweet gum thicket where the dogs could not follow easily, the hollow cypress where a person could stand without sinking, the rail fence loose enough to lift without noise, the overseer's blind spots, the cook's delivery day, the washerwoman's route, the cabin where someone would leave cornbread wrapped in cloth, the cabin where someone would sell you for a favor. Eli knew both maps, But he also carried a third map, the map inside the newspaper office. He knew when the Georgia Journal and Messenger went to press. He knew which advertisements had to be delivered early. He knew which legal notices were repeated for weeks and which appeared only once. He knew the printer, Mr. Dawes, kept old type locked in a drawer because replacement sorts cost money. He knew the night watchman at the courthouse slept hardest after the taverns emptied. He knew the east side of Macon, around the Central Railroad depot, held a dense and watchful black community. Enslaved porters, draymen, laundresses, cooks, carpenters, stable hands, people who could see a stranger before the stranger saw them. Most of all, Eli knew this. Slave catchers were not one enemy. They were many enemies pretending to be one body. The owner wanted his property back. The overseer wanted revenge. The patrol wanted a reward. The professional hunter wanted a reputation. The volunteers wanted excitement. The dogs wanted scent. If he could divide their attention, he could divide their strength. On Saturday morning, Eli returned to Macon with Crowell's hired-out papers. The pass read, "The bearer, Eli, has leave to be in Macon on business of his master until the 20th of December." December 20th. 5 days. After that, any patrol could stop him. Any stranger could seize him. Any jailer could lock him up until Crowell paid the fee. Eli walked down Cotton Avenue with the pass folded inside his shirt. Wagons groaned under cotton bales. Merchants shouted prices. A blacksmith's hammer rang. Somewhere near the river, a boat horn moaned. The city smelled of horse sweat, wood smoke, ink, grease, and damp earth. At the newspaper office, Mr. Dawes was arguing with a customer. "I want the notice in this week. Then it should have been here yesterday. It concerns stolen property. Everything in this county concerns somebody's property." Eli swept near the door, head down, ears open. The customer was a planter from Twiggs County. His notice described an enslaved carpenter named Peter, about 22 years of age. Very likely, speaks well, may have forged a pass. Eli swept the same patch of floor 3 times. May have forged a pass. Those 4 words mattered. They meant the enslaver feared literacy. They meant Peter might travel as a free man. They meant the patrol would study strangers' papers instead of only searching swamps. When the planter left, Dawes noticed Eli near the door. "You waiting for a medal?" "No, sir." "Then deliver the courthouse packet, and don't read my paper on the way." "No, sir." It was not a question of trust. It was a ritual. The white man warned the black boy not to do the very thing that made the system afraid. Eli carried the packet into the street. At the courthouse, he handed it to the clerk. On the way back, he passed the jail. A crowd had gathered outside. 2 patrollers were leading a black man in chains toward the door. The man's face was swollen. His shirt was torn. He did not resist. "Name?" "Peter." "Owner?" "I'm a free man. That's not what the paper says." "I have papers." "Had papers. Dogs found scraps in the woods. Could be anything." Eli kept walking. He did not look back. He could not afford to be remembered near the jail, but the image followed him. A man's freedom could be reduced to whether a dog left enough paper intact. By late afternoon, Eli had what he needed. Not a weapon, not a horse. Information. Crowell's advertisement would go into the next issue if Eli disappeared before Wednesday. It would say small, lame, likely headed north. Crowell always assumed runaways wanted the north because that was the story slaveholders told themselves. Freedom was somewhere else, beyond the line, beyond the river, beyond reach. It rarely occurred to them that a boy might move sideways into the crowded spaces they depended on but did not understand. Eli also knew the reward would not be large at first. Crowell was in debt. He would offer enough to attract local patrols, but not enough to summon the most dangerous hunters immediately, unless the overseer persuaded him otherwise. Peavy would. Peavy had hated Eli ever since Eli had once corrected him about a horse's shoe in front of visiting planters. It had been a small thing, A missing nail, a loose clinch. Peavy had said the mare was sound. Eli had said nothing until the mare went lame on the road. After that, Peavy looked at him the way a man looks at a locked door. So Eli assumed the worst. Crowell would offer $25. Peavy would raise it. They would hire Silas Tabb, a professional catcher from Crawford County, who kept dogs in a pen behind his house and boasted that he had returned runaways from as far as Alabama. Tabb would bring men. The patrol would bring more. If Eli gave them one trail, they would ride over him. If he gave them 5 trails, they would argue. That evening in the stable loft, Eli opened a folded piece of waste paper he had taken from the print shop floor. On one side was part of an auction notice. On the other, he had practiced letters with a stub of pencil stolen from the office. Not words, letters. He could read better than he could write. Writing required confidence in the hand, and his hand had been trained to hide. He wrote slowly, ELIMOSS, then below it, Atlanta, then Savannah, then Columbus. 3 destinations, 3 lies, 1 truth. He would not go to Atlanta. He would not go to Savannah. He would not go to Columbus. Not first. First, he would go nowhere, because the most powerful weapon he had was not speed, it was time. Below the loft, the stable door opened. Eli blew out the lantern. Peavy's voice rose through the floorboards. Eli. Eli slid the paper into the crack between 2 boards. I know you're awake. Yes, sir. Master says you'll stay here after Christmas. No more Macon. Yes, sir. You sound disappointed. No, sir. Good, because a boy like you gets ideas in town. Ideas are like ticks, best pulled out before they burrow. The lantern light moved below. What have you got in your hand? Eli opened his empty hand. Nothing. Turn it over. Eli turned it over. Other one. Eli lifted the other hand. In it was the blue cloth. Peavy climbed the ladder enough to snatch it. He held it near the lantern. What is this? My mama's. Your mama's what? Cloth. You keep trash like a magpie. Peavy held the cloth over the flame. Please. The overseer smiled. There it is. What? Fear. He pulled the cloth back and dropped it on the loft floor. Remember it. You'll need it. He climbed down. At the door, he stopped. If I ever see paper in your hand, boy, I'll take the hand. Then he was gone. Eli sat in the dark for a long time. When he finally picked up the blue cloth, his hands were shaking, not from weakness, from decision. Tomorrow. Eli vanished on a Sunday. That was why Sunday mattered. Sunday created motion without suspicion. It put baskets on roads, families on paths, and workers between plantations. It let a cart roll past men who would have stopped a lone boy in an instant. Eli understood that the best escape did not always begin with running. Sometimes it began with doing exactly what the enslaver expected, until the moment expectation became a blindfold. So he drove slowly. He answered politely. He kept his eyes low and his mind awake. Every mile gave him another detail to use. Not because Sunday was holy, because Sunday was useful. On Sundays, movement looked different. Enslaved people visited neighboring plantations with passes. Families gathered, food was cooked, clothes were washed, white families attended church or rested, patrols still rode but attention loosened, roads filled with people who had permission to be somewhere other than where they slept. Eli's pass allowed him to be in Macon until December 20th. So he did not begin by breaking the law. He began by obeying it. At first light, he hitched the plantation cart and drove Lila and 2 baskets of laundry toward Macon, exactly as Crowell had ordered. Aunt Charity sat beside him with a shawl over her head. Lila sat in the back, small and silent, holding a corn-husk doll. They passed a patrol near the creek bridge, 4 white men on horseback. Lanterns still hung from their saddles, though the sun was rising. Hold. Eli stopped the cart. He did not reach for his pass too quickly. A frightened boy might fumble. A guilty boy might hide. Eli did neither. He waited. "Where are you bound?" "Macon, sir. Laundry for Mrs. Dawes. My master's paper is here." He offered the pass with 2 fingers, eyes lowered. Cone read it slowly, lips moving. "Eli." "Yes, sir. Who's the girl?" "Mine, sir. Helps with the baskets." "She got a pass?" Aunt Charity reached into her apron and produced a folded note. Mistress Crowell wrote her permission. "She don't write pretty, but she writes legal." One of the patrollers chuckled. Cone did not. He studied Lila. "How old?" "9, sir. You speak when spoken to." Lila lowered her eyes. Cone handed the papers back. "Go on." The cart rolled forward. Only after the bridge was out of sight did Eli release the breath he had been holding. "You did well. I did ordinary." "That's the same thing. Done right." They reached Macon before the church bells. The city was waking. Smoke rose from kitchen chimneys. Free black men and enslaved workers moved through the streets with baskets, tools, bundles, and messages. Near the depot, porters unloaded crates from a freight car. A white conductor shouted about a delayed train. Somewhere, a woman sang while she worked, low enough that the words belonged only to those who needed them. Aunt Charity guided the cart behind a wash shed in East Macon. Mama Zilphia stood waiting. She was old in the way that made age a form of authority. Her hair was white beneath a red head wrap. Her hands were strong from decades of laundry. She had been born in Virginia, sold to Georgia, widowed by sale, and freed late in life by a mistress who feared divine judgment more than she loved money. Freedom had not made her safe, it had only changed the shape of the danger. She looked at Eli for a long moment. "You the one with the limp?" "Yes'm. You look like a wind could break you." "Yes'm." "Good. Men hunt strength. They step over weakness." She turned to Lila. "And you are the seed he's trying to keep out of the fire." "Yes'm." "Can you keep silent?" "Yes'm." "Can you lie? If I have to, can you lie to a white man with a gun?" Lila hesitated. "Good. If you had answered too fast, I'd know you couldn't." She lifted a basket of clean linen. Inside, beneath folded sheets, was a smaller basket. Inside that basket was a dress. Not a child's dress. A servant's dress, too large, with a head wrap and apron. "She will not leave with you. She will leave with me. Today she becomes my granddaughter's helper. Tomorrow she becomes nobody's concern." "Where will you take her?" "The less you know, the less you can tell." That's what I told her. Then you already understand the first rule. The second rule is harder. If you are caught, you do not know me. You do not know Charity. You do not know the child's road. You do not know your own name if knowing it will endanger another. And if they whip me, then you scream. You beg. You give them a lie they already believe. You tell them you were headed north because every fool with a rifle believes the north is a magnet pulling black feet through the dark. And the truth? The truth belongs to the living. Eli looked at Lila. "You remember the words? Blue thread. If I say it, you follow. If anybody else says it, you run." "To where?" "To me." Eli knelt before his sister. "I'm going to make noise." "You?" "A lot of it. Enough that they chase me and not you, but you can't run." "No. Then how will you make noise?" He took the corn-husk doll from her hands and tucked it into his shirt. "By leaving footprints where I'm not going." At 9 o'clock, Eli delivered the laundry to the Dawes household. At 10, he carried a message to the courthouse. At 11, he was seen near the depot by 3 separate witnesses: a black porter, a white ticket clerk, and a boy selling roasted chestnuts. He asked the ticket clerk a question. "Sir, what time does the northbound freight leave?" "Northbound? You got business with freight?" "No, sir. My master asked me to learn the schedule. Then tell him to come himself." Eli walked away. The clerk forgot him almost immediately. That was the point. At noon, Eli left Macon by the northwest road. He walked slowly, openly, with his bad leg dragging. He passed a farmer and touched his hat. He passed a white woman and stepped aside. He passed 2 enslaved men repairing a fence and said nothing, but let them see his face. By 1 o'clock, he reached the creek. He stepped into the water. The cold climbed through his shoes and seized his bad leg. He nearly cried out. Instead, he forced himself forward, 1 step, then another, staying in the creek for nearly half a mile. Where the water split around a fallen oak, he climbed onto the trunk and moved along it without touching the bank. At the far side, he rubbed his shoes in wet clay, then in pine needles, then in the dung of a mule pen behind an abandoned shed. He tied an old shirt, one he had worn all week, to a bundle of sticks shaped like a sleeping boy. He dragged it toward the northern woods. Then he returned to the creek and walked south in the water. By the time the sun lowered, Eli had created 3 beginnings to his escape. A witness had heard him ask about northbound freight. A shirt carried his scent toward the northern woods. A pair of footprints led toward a plantation road where a mule had been tied. None of them was true. The truth waited under a pile of feed sacks in a wagon shed behind the washhouse in East Macon, where Eli Moss lay curled in the dark, listening to the city and trying not to cough. He had not escaped. He had become bait. Where is he? Monday morning came with fists. Peavy rode into Macon before the shops opened. He woke Mr. Dawes first. He left the courthouse packet Saturday. Did he come back here? No. And if you're asking whether I saw him Sunday, the answer is no. I don't work Sundays. Your kind works when money's involved. Dawes did not like Peavy. That did not make him an ally. If the boy ran, he ran from you, not from me. He had no reason to flee my shop. He had 50 reasons. His master owes half the county. By 8 o'clock, Crowell had written a reward notice. By 9, he had paid to have handbills printed. By 10, Harlan Peavy had ridden to Crawford County to fetch Silas Tabb. Tabb arrived after dark with 4 men, 4 dogs, 2 rifles, a shotgun, a sack of chains, and the confidence of a man who had turned pursuit into business. He was lean, gray at the temples, and quiet. His cruelty was not loud. Loud men wasted energy. Tabb preferred to listen. At Magnolia Bluff, he walked the stable loft without speaking. He touched Eli's blanket. He examined the crack between the boards. He found nothing because Eli had already removed the practice paper. Then Tabb knelt and looked at the floor. He sleeps on his left side. How do you know? Dust. Tabb moved to the ladder. He favors the right leg, but he does not let it fail. He plans around it. He's a boy, so was David. Peavy blinked. Scripture, Mr. Peavy. The small one killed the giant because the giant expected a certain kind of fight. Are you saying he's dangerous? I'm saying he's alive. That makes every runaway dangerous to somebody. By Tuesday, the hunting party had grown. 17 sounds like an army until you look closely at what it really was. It was not one mind. It was 17 different hungers wearing the same coat of authority. Crowell wanted his property back before his creditors smelled weakness. Peavy wanted the boy punished because the boy had seen through him too many times. Cone wanted the patrol to look useful. The jailer wanted a fee. The volunteers wanted a story they could tell in taverns. And Silas Tabb wanted the one thing money could not fully buy. He wanted other men to keep believing that no runaway could outthink him. Crowell sent Peavy and 2 plantation riders. The county patrol assigned 6 men under Jesse Cone. Tabb brought 4. 2 neighboring planters joined for the reward and the sport. 1 jailer from Macon came because he hoped to claim a finder's fee. 1 stable boy was forced along to identify Eli. 17 men. Some were there for money. Some for duty, some for pride, some because hunting a child made them feel like masters of more than cotton. They gathered at the creek bridge where Eli's cart had passed on Sunday. Tab dismounted. He touched the mud. He studied the water. He smelled the air. Dogs picked up scent in the north woods. Whose scent? The boys'. Shirt found on a bundle. Show me. They rode north. The shirt lay draped over sticks in a shallow ravine. It had been arranged to resemble a boy sleeping on his side. Tab dismounted again. He lifted the shirt. He wore this. Then we have him. No, we have a shirt. The dogs circled, confused. One barked toward the ravine. Another ran back to the creek. Tab watched them. The scent is strong here because he wanted it strong. It breaks at the water, so he crossed. Everybody crosses water. The question is which way he went after. North. They all want north. That is what they want us to think. You saying he went south, toward more slavery? I'm saying a lame boy does not walk toward Canada. The men argued. That was Eli's first victory. Not distance, disagreement. Cone wanted to search the north woods. Peavy wanted to drag the swamp. The jailer wanted to check the Macon lockup. The neighboring planters wanted to ride to Atlanta before the trail went cold. Tab let them argue. Then he said the sentence Eli had feared most. We split. The dogs were divided. 4 men went north toward the Atlanta road. 5 went east toward the swamp. 4 stayed in Macon to watch the depot, jail, and newspaper office. Tab, Peavy, Cone, and the stable boy returned to the creek. Tab stood in the water and looked upstream, then downstream. He entered here. You can't know that. No, but if I were weak, I would make the strong place look like the wrong place. He pointed south. He went back toward the city. Why would he do that? Because everyone expects him to leave it. For the first time, Eli's plan trembled, because Silas Tab was not stupid, and intelligence in the service of evil is more frightening than rage. Back in Macon, hidden beneath feed sacks, Eli heard wagon wheels stop outside the wash shed. A voice he recognized spoke to Aunt Charity. It was Peavy. Search it. Boots struck the dirt. A lantern opened. The feed sacks above Eli shifted. He pressed his hand over his mouth. His cough rose in his chest like a living thing. He swallowed it. Again, until blood touched his tongue. You got a paper says you can tear through my baskets? I don't need paper. No. Men like you never do. A silence followed. What did you say? I said I have clean sheets belonging to Mrs. Crowell in that basket. If your men put their hands in them, you can explain to your mistress why her linen smells like stable. Peavy hesitated, not because he feared Mama Zilphia, because he feared Mistress Crowell's temper. Watch the road. The boots withdrew. Eli did not move for a full minute. Then Aunt Charity lifted one feed sack. Child, here, you can't stay. I know, they'll bring dogs by night. I know. Then what now? Eli looked toward the newspaper office, 3 streets away. Now I give them something to read. The newspaper office after midnight smelled of ink, oil, paper dust, and cold metal. A newspaper office was one of the most dangerous rooms in Georgia for a boy like Eli. Not because of the machines, not because of the ink, because of what the room proved. It proved that power depended on words. Passes were words. Deeds were words. Reward notices were words. Even a human life could be reduced to a few lines of type and sold beside an advertisement for land. If Eli could read those words, he could read the system's fear. And if he could move those words around, he could make fear turn in the wrong direction. Eli slipped in through the rear window because Mr. Dawes never locked it properly. Dawes trusted the town to protect his property. The town trusted the patrol. The patrol trusted fear. Fear had a blind spot. Eli moved through the dark by memory. He did not light a candle at first. He found the discarded proof sheets near the press and felt their edges. He knew the texture of fresh ink. He knew the sound of loose type. He knew the desk drawer where Dawes kept old notices clipped for reference. He also knew the risk. If he was caught here, there would be no story about a confused boy who got lost. A black boy in a newspaper office at night, near type and paper, would be treated not as a runaway, but as a threat to the written order of slavery. They would not ask whether he could read. They would assume it, and they would make an example of him. Eli sat on the floor and breathed until his hands steadied. Then he lit the smallest stub of candle and shaded it with his body. He spread out 3 things: Crowell's fresh handbill, an old taken-up notice, and a scrap of clean paper. The handbill said, $25 reward, runaway, Eli, small maid, lame, believed to be making north. The old notice said, taken up and committed to the jail of Bibb County, a Negro boy who says his name is... The sentence ended there because the clipping had been torn. Eli stared at the words. A plan formed the way a picture forms in a basin of water. Slowly, then all at once. He could not forge a full newspaper. He could not write a convincing legal notice, but he could rearrange what already existed. He took a thin knife from Dawes's desk and cut words from discarded proof sheets. Taken up a Negro boy who says his name is Eli committed jail Columbus. He pasted them onto the scrap with flour paste he found near the bundle twine. The result was ugly, crooked, obviously false to anyone who studied it. So he did not intend for anyone to study it. He intended for someone to see it in panic, at dawn, in the wrong hands. Eli froze. The candle flickered. A figure stood in the doorway. "What are you doing?" Eli's heart slammed once, hard enough to hurt. He could not run. He could not lie convincingly. So he did the one thing slavery trained people to do when truth and survival collided. He made himself small. "Sir, you can read?" "No, sir." "Then what are those?" Dawes crossed the room and saw the cut words. His face changed, not softened, changed. Fear entered it. "Do you know what they'll do to you if you're found with this?" "Yes, sir." "Do you know what they'll do to me?" There it was. Not concern for the boy, concern for the man whose property was the shop. "I was not here. You are here." "No, sir. I am a runaway. You found the window open. You saw nothing. You think that protects me?" "No, sir. Then why say it?" Eli looked at him. For the first time, he did not lower his eyes. "Because you want to believe it." The words hung between them. Dawes was not a good man. He printed reward notices. He accepted money from enslavers. He had never struck Eli, but he had never seen him either. Now he saw him. And what he saw was a boy who understood that white innocence was often a choice. Put out the candle. "Sir, if you are caught here, I will swear I knew nothing. If you leave paper behind, I will burn it and say the same. If you touch my press, I will call the patrol myself. I only need scraps. You need a coffin." Eli gathered the pasted notice. "Where are you going?" "Where they'll think I was caught." "Columbus?" "No, sir." "Then why make them believe it? Because a man chasing a captured boy stops hunting." Dawes looked toward the window. "There are men watching this street. How many?" "2 at the depot, 1 near the jail, 1 by the bridge, 4 in town." Eli had counted correctly. "And dogs." "I heard them. They'll smell you on that paper. That's why I won't be holding it when they find it." Dawes rubbed his face. "Boy, sir, if you can read, God help you." Eli paused at the window. "He has so far." Then he was gone. Eli moved through the alley behind the newspaper office, keeping to the shadow of the fence. At the corner, he saw the jailer's assistant asleep in a chair beside the side door. A lantern burned low on the table. Outside, a patrol horse shifted its weight. Eli placed the false taken-up notice beneath the door, weighted with a stone. Then he knocked once, hard, and ran 3 steps into the shadow of a rain barrel. The assistant woke with a snort. "Who's there?" He opened the door. No one. He looked down. He lifted the stone. He read the crooked words by lantern light. "Jailer! Hey, somebody left a notice. Boy's been taken up in Columbus." Inside, boots hit the floor. Eli slipped away. The lie began to travel. Not because it was believed completely, because it was useful. The jailer wanted to be relieved of responsibility. The patrol wanted an excuse to rest. The volunteers wanted the reward without the work. And Crowell, deep in debt, wanted the hunt to end before it cost him more than the boy was worth. By sunrise, half the hunters were arguing over whether to ride to Columbus. By full light, the other half were laughing at them. "It's a trick." The notice came to my door. Anybody can leave paper at a door. It says, "Columbus." Let me see it. Tab held the pasted scrap near the window. He did not laugh. He ran one finger across the glued edges. "Cut type." Meaning? Meaning the boy can read. A silence entered the room. Not fear of Eli's body, fear of his mind. Who taught him? Nobody. Then he taught himself. Worse? Why worse? Because a boy taught by another has a teacher who can be found. A boy who teaches himself has learned to find doors. Peavy's face darkened. Crowell said he couldn't read. Crowell also said he'd be home by Christmas. Tab folded the false notice and put it in his coat. He wanted us to see this. Then he's still here. Or he was. For the second time, Eli's plan bent under Tab's intelligence. But Eli had expected the notice to be doubted. Doubt was not failure. Doubt was delay. And delay was all he needed. Eli left Macon on a Wednesday. The river did not care who owned the land beside it. It did not ask for passes. It did not read reward. Notices. It carried cotton and timber, but it also carried secrets. For the men on horseback, water was an obstacle. For Eli, water was an eraser. Every step into the current wiped away another piece of the story the dogs were trying to tell. But the river demanded payment. It stole heat from his body. It turned his bad leg numb. It filled his chest with the kind of cold that made each breath feel borrowed. The same day the newspaper came off the press. The same day Crowell's advertisement would begin moving through the county in print. The same day readers would learn his age, his limp, his scar, his likely direction. He could not stop the notice, so he used it. If the paper said he was believed to be making north, then anyone who saw a small lame boy near the southern road might hesitate. That cannot be him. The paper says north. That hesitation could save a life. Eli wore clothes taken from the wash shed, a patched coat, a woman's old shawl tied around his head like a field scarf, and a basket strapped to his back. From a distance he looked like a girl carrying laundry. His right leg ached from cold. His cough had settled deep in his chest. He had eaten half a biscuit in 2 days. But he had Lila's doll inside his shirt and his mother's blue cloth around his wrist. He moved toward the Ocmulgee, not because the river led directly to freedom, because the river led away from the road. The dogs found his trail near an abandoned mule pen. They surged through the brush, howling. Tab rode behind them. Peavy rode beside him. Cone followed with 2 patrollers. "They've got him. Quiet." The dogs ran to the water and stopped. They paced, they circled. One lunged upstream, another downstream. Lost him. No. Tab dismounted. He studied the bank. He enters water because water is honest. It carries no scent and leaves no witness. Then, which way? Downstream is easier. Then, downstream. Easier for a strong boy. Tab looked upstream. He knows we know he is weak, so he will choose the harder direction to make us choose the easy one. For the third time, Tab came close. Too close, because Eli had indeed entered the river. But he had done something else first. He had cut a strip from the shawl and tied it to a branch upstream. The dogs found the cloth. They bayed. Tab rode toward it. Eli, meanwhile, lay beneath the fallen oak farther downstream, half submerged in brown water, with only his nose and mouth above the surface. The cold was beyond pain now. It had become instruction. Do not shiver. Do not cough. Do not move. A dog barked from the bank above him. Eli closed his eyes. He heard hooves. Anything? Cloth upstream. Bring it. The hooves receded. Eli waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. Then a branch snapped directly overhead. He opened his eyes. Silas Tabb stood on the fallen oak, looking down. For one heartbeat, the story balanced on a knife. Tabb's eyes moved across the water. Eli did not breathe. A scrap of river weed clung to his cheek. His body was invisible beneath the brown surface except for the faint outline of his mouth. Tabb knelt. He touched the bark. Clever. Eli's chest spasmed. The cough came. He pressed his face into the mud and let the river swallow the sound. Tabb, dogs found something. Tabb stood. He looked once more at the water. Then he turned away. Coming. The boots crossed the oak. The hoofbeats faded. Eli remained in the river until his hands went numb. Then he crawled out on the opposite bank and vomited water into the leaves. He was alive, but barely. He had planned to reach the old rice landing by nightfall. Instead, he collapsed in a gully before sunset. His bad legs swelled. His fever returned. His thoughts began to drift. He saw his mother drawing letters on a shingle. Eli. He saw Lila in the back of the cart. He saw the trader's gloves. He saw the dogs. Then he heard a voice. "If you die there, boy, the buzzards will tell on you." Eli jerked awake. A black man stood over him, old and thin, with a sack over one shoulder and a long knife at his belt. Eli tried to stand. His leg failed. "Don't get up on my account." "Who are you?" A man asking questions is usually running from somebody or hunting somebody. "Which are you?" "Depends which one you are." Eli said nothing. The old man smiled without showing teeth. "Good answer." He knelt and touched Eli's forehead. "Fever. I have to reach the landing. You have to live till dark first." "Who are you?" "Name's Fortune. From Magnolia Bluff. Used to be, before Crowell's father sold my wife and I took offense." Eli stared. "You're Esther's boy." "You knew my mother." "I knew her before Crowell owned the paper on her. She had a mind like a hidden blade. She taught me letters. Then she gave you a weapon." Fortune lifted Eli and half-carried him into a thicket where a small fire burned without smoke. "Drink." Eli drank bitter tea from a tin cup. "You made a mess of the county. You heard?" "Everybody heard. 17 men, they say." 17? Counting the ones who came late and the ones who only wanted to be seen with a rope. Eli almost laughed. It hurt too much. "How long you been out?" "Since Sunday." "And where are you going?" "South. That's the wrong way." "For who?" Fortune studied him. "For most. My sister is being moved towards Savannah. Then you're not running from slavery. You're running after family. Same road." "No, it's a harder one." Eli closed his eyes. "You can't catch a wagon on that leg. I don't have to catch it. I have to meet it." "Where?" "The landing below the fork." "When?" "Friday." "That's 2 days." "I know." "With fever?" "I know." "And dogs behind you?" "I know." Fortune looked toward the darkening trees. "Then you'd better stop trying to be a man and start being a ghost." "How?" "Ghosts don't travel roads. Ghosts don't argue with dogs. Ghosts arrive where the living refuse to look." He reached into his sack and pulled out a bundle. Inside were dried fish, a small pouch of salt, and a length of rope. "You'll need to be carried." "By who?" "By water." He pointed toward the river. "There's a flatboat tied below the landing. It belongs to a man who owes me a debt and fears me more than he loves Crowell. If you can reach it by tomorrow night, hide under the tarp behind the salt barrels. Do not come out till you hear 3 knocks, then 1. What if I hear dogs? Then pray they cannot swim." Eli gripped the blue cloth around his wrist. "Why help me? Because once your mother hid me in a wash basket when I was too beaten to stand. Because she read a passage from the Bible while a patrol searched the cabin and did not tremble. Because I owe her more than a boat ride. She was sold." "I know. Did you ever hear where?" Fortune looked into the fire. "No. The answer was a door closing, but not locking. Sleep 1 hour, then move. What if Tab finds the boat? Then the river keeps your secret." Eli did not ask what that meant. He already knew. Thursday came gray and wet. Rain fell without conviction, the kind that soaked slowly and made every road shine. At Magnolia Bluff, the 17 hunters gathered again. By then, the hunt had begun to eat itself. Men who had laughed at the boy on the first morning were now blaming one another. The North Road party said the Swamp party had destroyed the scent. The Swamp party said the town men had fallen for a childish trick. The jailer insisted the Columbus notice had looked real. Crowell insisted nobody was being paid to stand in the rain. And beneath all the anger sat a fear none of them wanted to name. If a lame enslaved boy could move them like pieces on a board, what else had they failed to see? They were no longer confident. The Northern party had found nothing. The Swamp party had found the shirt and lost the scent. The town party had chased the false Columbus notice and embarrassed the jailer. The reward had been raised to $50. The advertisement had appeared in the Wednesday paper. Crowell was furious. Peavy was humiliated. Cone was tired. The volunteers were beginning to calculate whether $50 was worth another night in the rain. Only Silas Tabb remained calm. He stood over a map drawn in the dirt with a stick. "He made us look north. We know. He made us look west. The Columbus notice was false. He made us look at the city. We searched the city. No, we searched the city's face, not its pockets." He drew a line from Macon to the river. A lame boy cannot walk far. A sick boy cannot hide long. A boy who knows letters will use them. A boy who loves his sister will not leave her behind unless he has made arrangements. The girl's gone too. The words landed like a dropped chain. What? Aunt Charity's wash. Girl, the little one. Lila. Nobody has seen her since Sunday. Crowell's face went white, then red. You told me she was with the washerwoman. She was, and now she is not. Crowell turned on Tab. You are hunting the wrong child. No, the girl is worth more. To you, perhaps. To the boy, she is the reason. He drew another line. He did not run away from the plantation. He ran toward the sail. The sail is here. The trader is here. The road to the trader's market runs south. Columbus, Savannah. Silence. Why Savannah? Because a child in Savannah can vanish into a crowd. Because ships leave. Because sailors ask fewer questions when paid. Because black hands load the cargo and black eyes see everything. You're saying he intends to steal my property twice. No one answered the obscenity of the sentence. We ride to the river landings. Now. By afternoon, patrols watched every crossing within 10 miles. The hunters split again. 4 men rode to the northern ford, 5 to the swamp road, 3 guarded the depot. 2 watched the jail and newspaper office. 3 went to the southern landing. That left Tab, Peavy, Cone, and Crowell riding toward the old rice landing below the fork. 17 men, scattered by a boy who could barely stand. Eli reached the flatboat after midnight. The rain had stopped. Fog lay over the river in strips. The boat was little more than a broad wooden platform with low sides, loaded with salt barrels, tarpaulins, and crates. He crawled aboard. His fingers were too numb to grip, so he hooked his wrists over the rail and dragged himself forward. Behind the salt barrels was a narrow space. He squeezed into it. He pulled the tarp over himself. He held Lila's doll against his chest. And he waited. Dawn came. The boat did not move. Eli heard voices on the landing. "Told you, I'm waiting on the tide and a load of cordwood." "You expect us to believe that?" "I don't care what you believe. I care what the river does." "Search it." Boots struck the deck. Eli closed his eyes. The tarp lifted near the front of the boat. Crates shifted. A rifle butt struck wood. Then Tab's voice, closer. "What's under the tarp?" "Salt. Open it." "Salt don't like rain. You pay for what you ruin?" "Open it." The tarp moved. Light appeared at the edge. Eli pressed himself against the barrels. His lungs burned. The cough rose. He bit into his own hand. The taste of blood filled his mouth. Nothing but barrels. "Move them. You want to unload my boat? You sign for the labor." "Move one." A barrel shifted. Eli felt the boat tilt slightly. Another inch and the space would open. Then, from the landing, a horn sounded. 3 blasts. Then 1. The boatman stiffened. "That's the wood signal." "What wood signal?" "Means my load is coming. Means if you want to keep searching, you can explain to the merchant why his cordwood sits on the wrong side of the river." A wagon rattled toward the landing. Voices shouted. Men turned. Eli heard Tab step away. "Watch the boat. You think he's here?" "I think we are close enough to be wrong." The hunters moved toward the wagon. The boatman leaned close to the tarp. "If you can hear me, boy, don't bless me yet. This river has eaten cleverer men than you." The flatboat pushed away an hour later. Eli did not know it at first. The motion was too gentle. Then water began moving beneath the boards, and the voices on the landing grew faint. Only when the boatman knocked 3 times, then once, did Eli lift the tarp. The river opened around him. Fog covered the banks. No horses, no dogs, no rifles, only water. "You alive?" "I think so." "Then keep thinking quietly." "Where are we going?" "Down river. To Savannah? To a place where somebody else decides whether you continue." Eli lay back against the salt barrels. For the first time in 5 days, he slept. The flatboat reached the lower landing after dark. Eli woke to the smell of pitch, fish, and smoke. The boatman pulled back the tarp. "End of my road." "Where is this?" "A place with no name if anybody asks." On the dock stood Mama Zilphia. Eli tried to stand. His leg collapsed. Mama Zilphia caught him before the boatman could. "Still too weak to run?" "Yes'm." "Good. You lived long enough for it not to matter." She helped him into a cart filled with laundry baskets. At the back, beneath folded sheets, Lila opened her eyes. For a moment, neither child spoke. Then Lila threw her arms around him. "I knew you wasn't caught." "How?" "Because they kept getting madder." Eli laughed, and this time the pain did not stop him. "Quiet now. Quiet is still the road." The cart moved through a settlement of small houses near the river. Black faces appeared in doorways. No one called out. No one asked names. A man lifted a lantern, saw the children, and turned away as if he had seen nothing. That, too, was rescue. Not always a dramatic ride to the north. Sometimes rescue was a community deciding, together, not to see what the law demanded they report. Inside a low cabin, Mama Zilphia laid out the next road. A schooner leaves in 2 nights, coastwise. Rice, cotton, timber. Aboard it is a cook who was born free in Charleston and has no love for slave papers. He will hide you among empty casks if the Lord is willing and the captain looks the other way. Where does the ship go? North. How far? Far enough to begin. And after? After is not promised. Lila looked at Eli. Will we be free? Eli wanted to say yes. He wanted to give his sister a clean ending. Instead, he gave her the truth. We'll be closer. That's not the same. No. Will they still hunt us? Maybe. Then why go? Eli took her hand, because staying is certain. Outside wind moved through the reeds. Mama Zilphia placed a small parcel in Eli's lap. Inside was a piece of paper. A free girl your age wrote it. Directions, names, words you must burn into memory and then burn from the page. Eli unfolded it. The letters were clear. His eyes moved over them. Mama Zilphia watched. Your mother taught you? Some. Then she is here tonight. Eli looked down at the page. At the bottom were 4 words. Nobody owns your name. He read them again, and again, until they were no longer ink. 2 nights later, a schooner left the Georgia coast with a cargo of rice, cotton, timber, and 2 children hidden where men were not supposed to look. This is where history becomes quiet. Not because nothing happened, but because the records were never built to protect children like Eli and Lila. The archive kept bills of sale. It kept reward notices. It kept court fees and jail receipts. It did not keep the sound of a sister whispering through laundry baskets. It did not keep the courage of old women who hid children under clean linen. It did not keep the names of boatmen who looked away at the right moment. So when we tell a story like this, we are standing between what can be proved and what had to be true for anyone to survive. Whether Eli and Lila reached permanent freedom, no surviving record can tell us. That silence matters. The archive of slavery was written by enslavers, traders, patrolmen, jailers, and newspapers that sold reward notices beside advertisements for land and livestock. It recorded people when they were bought, sold, punished, captured, or claimed. It rarely recorded the interior courage of a child. It rarely preserved the names of the black women and men who hid freedom seekers in baskets, boats, wash sheds, kitchens, churches, and woods. So perhaps the story ends here. A boy too weak to run escaped because he understood that the men hunting him were trapped by their own assumptions. They expected fear. He gave them strategy. They expected speed. He gave them delay. They expected a body. He gave them ink. And 17 men, with horses, rifles, chains, dogs, and the law behind them, were defeated by the one thing slavery could never fully confiscate: a mind that refused to be owned. Thank you for staying with this story. If you are watching from somewhere in the world right now, tell us in the comments your city, your country, and the time there. And if this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes history still has lessons for the future. This is Shadows of Black History. Remember the names when we can. And when history has hidden the names, remember the courage.